Hello! Well, I was going to make this video about my dietary experiences throughout my life, but I thought maybe that was going to be tedious, and anyway, at the moment I'm more obsessed with metaphysical type things. I've been reading this book, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs, Imminent by Elizondo. And this is an absolutely fascinating book, and it's called to mind experiences in my life which I've had, which I wrote off at the time, but now I'm airing them again just in case they might be relevant and to find out if other people have had similar experiences. So just before Christmas, the drone thing hit the internet. People were going crazy about all the drones they could see in the sky over New Jersey and over other towns as well, apparently. They called them drones. They were not responding like normal drones. They had lights that weren't like the normal lights they were supposed to be. They sometimes disappeared. There were masses of them night after night. And the government of America just was not willing to say anything about them. There was like a blanket of secrecy, which of course fueled the speculation more and more. So I was just listening to an interview with the mayor of New Jersey today, the 16th of January 2025, and he was saying, well, yeah, that the incidence of these things dropped off after the 27th of December. It was like they were swarming everywhere up until then, and then they noticeably went a bit quiet. I imagine that might have been around the time when the UAA, the Aviation Authority, whatever they call themselves in America, declared that you mustn't fly drones or something. I don't know. There was some directive which might have had something to do with it if they were human-operated drones. Although the mayor of New Jersey said that he was still getting sightings. There were still drones flying overhead. They're calling them drones. They're not like drones that people know, but they might be advanced technology that various technological companies have been developing, and the mayor's point of view was they were trying to show what they could do because they wanted contracts with the new administration that's just coming in. And that seems fairly plausible, except that the reports of these drones were coming from all over the place, not just the USA, but other countries. There were some over an air base in England, or two, I think, and various other countries. So if it is what's happening, these companies are flying their drones all over the world and doing their clever tricks over a vast period of time. I mean, weeks and weeks. Why would they do that if they were just showing what their drone's capable of? So I don't know. If it wasn't that, what was it? I think a lot of people are still wanting to associate this drone phenomenon with the background phenomenon that's been going on for decades, if not centuries, where people have reported seeing lights in the sky, moving in anomalous manners, moving in one direction and then in another direction, shooting up into space, going down under the sea, and right down to lights going into their actual homes. So this guy, Elizondo, says that he had, after he started investigating these things, he had orbs, as they call them, floating through his house, and everybody saw them. His whole family was kind of flabbergasted, but there was nothing they could do. These things just floated through, hovered, looked at them and disappeared. Like surveillances of some kind, but not actual physical cameras, just something unidentifiable. So there seems to be a lot of evidence for these things. He says there is, and that it's all been kept secret by various organisations that are taking possession of the data and trying to stop the public from seeing it. Well, it's been a blanket of secrecy for so long, you wonder if there really is any information or if it's ever going to come out. But at the same time, it seems to be the case that something is going on, and it would be nice if they did release a bit more data and let us know what they've got on it. Apparently, there were at least one actual spacecraft that crashed. Elizondo thinks it's because the nuclear facility was experimenting with some electromagnetic blast and they caught it by mistake and it came down. And there was metal recovered that was an alien kind of metal. They tried to reproduce it and they couldn't get the alloy to work. And there were actual bodies inside as well, which they took to pieces and analysed, etc. Well, it would be really interesting to know about this, wouldn't it? Anyway, so I was reading about these orbs floating through people's houses, and I was thinking, I haven't had anything like that, but I have had strange light effects in my house, in my houses, various places I've been, which I couldn't explain other than to say they were probably visual hallucinations. You know, they say that sometimes when you're on the boundary between sleeping and waking, you can experience strange things. So most of these were, well, would probably have been able to go into that category, except for a couple of more recent ones. So I'll get on to that. The visual hallucinations that I have had occupied the middle period of my life, I'd say. Probably at a time when I was going through a bit more stress than I had been going through, because my marriage was not going that well. And I was studying anthroposophy, which is a really strange kind of, it's a cosmology. It's how the cosmos works according to Rudolf Steiner. And I went into this fairly deeply, and I did find that after I'd been reading the works of Rudolf Steiner, I did get these odd experiences. So they might have been down to that, they might have been down to my life situation, who knows. Things were going on in my brain that were different to normal. I was either receiving something or inventing something. So what these things were, I would wake up, I would kind of be on the edge of sleep, and I'd be aware that I wasn't actually falling asleep, so I'd rouse myself and turn over to the other side and eventually go to sleep. And while I was turning, I would see a strange light configuration in the corner of the ceiling. And I would look at it, and before I could work out what it actually looked like, it would fade away. Now, this happened numerous times, I'd say. It would be the same configuration repeatedly, and then it would be a different configuration, maybe a different colour. And it was always on the edge of sleep. Once when we were on holiday, I woke up and I saw what I took to be the projection of the shape of the window onto the radiator next to the bed. You know, a light was shining through the window and making like a square pattern on the radiator. But it wasn't, because it wasn't even the same shape as the window, I don't think, and of course it faded as I woke up more. Then there was a couple of interesting things that happened around the time of what they called the harmonic convergence. I was in with a crowd of people who were very, spiritually minded, and there are going to be 3 stars shining from the same part of the sky at the same time, and this is going to be a very special spiritual event. So why don't we go and have a wild camp and meditate and things? So I took part in this wild camp, and on the day of the harmonic convergence, we all sat on a cliff top and gazed towards the east and meditated on world peace, which was all very lovely. But I don't know if anything actually happened. We went home. The next day, I had this experience of waking up in my bed, looking at my bedroom, and the whole bedroom was bathed in pink light. I could see the details of the room with the pink light on them. And again, as I looked at it, it just faded away. And I have no idea. You've got nothing to compare it with. You can't say, well, was this how the room really was? Was it actually light shining on it? Was it my imagination? But it happened. And another thing, which was quite a unique experience, I think, I woke up and above me, if it had been in physical space, it would have been about a yard away from my face, was a large form of a spider sort of hanging in the air over me with lots of dangly legs. Now, you would think I would be terrified, but none of these experiences had any emotional connotations at all. They were just like, oh, that's interesting, that's curious, oh, it's gone, every single time. So again, I looked at this spider, and it not only faded, but it kind of receded away from me and disappeared. I would have thought if I had imagined a spider, I would have been a bit terrified, I wouldn't have just looked at it and thought, oh, what's that? Then there was the occasion when I had my youngest child in the bed next to me. And I don't judge. I know they say you shouldn't have your child in bed with you, but it was easier to feed him that way when he was very young. So I woke up and I looked at my baby's head, and there appeared to be a red light shining on the back of his head. And I had enough time to look at it and think, oh, maybe that's the reflection of a brake light from a car outside the window, because there was a road outside the window. And I watched it and it faded away. So then I looked out of the window to see if there was a car, and there wasn't. And even if there had been, the angle was wrong. It couldn't have been a light from a car. And more recently, there was a couple of other incidents associated with babies, because I was visiting my daughter after her baby was born, and I was wandering around, went to the bathroom to brush my teeth, and I saw in a bathroom cupboard on a towel was a blue light. So this was as though there was one of those electronic lights, indicators shining, and it was reflecting off the towel. But as I looked at it, it faded away, and when I looked round the cupboard, there wasn't any kind of light source that could have been making it happen. And then, while I was on the same visit, I saw another blue light, or possibly the same one, who knows, on the landing, down by the floor, just shining there as though someone was shining a blue light at the floor next to the staircase. And as I looked at it, it faded away, and so I thought, what's happening here? Is there a light somewhere on the landing? But I couldn't see anything that could have made it happen. And the interesting thing about these blue lights was I was not on the edge of sleep and wakefulness. I was fully awake, walking about the house. So how do you explain that? So what I would like to know is, do other people see these things? Is this unique to me? Or is it a fairly common experience? It's not something you kind of chat about, so how would you ever know? And was it hallucinations? Have I damaged my brain in some way and it's getting more and more kind of psychotic or something? I don't feel that it is, but then you never know, do you? Anyway, maybe in the next video I'll talk about my dietary journey. But for now, have a nice day. Bye.